Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Fenton, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
We're going to try it like this. We'll do it once all together, and then we'll all start around, and then we'll do it 2 more times, so 3 times total. So it sounds like this.
Good morning. My name is Nora Mulligan, and I am the Vice President of the Board of Trustees. Why are you laughing? Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homelands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. We have a couple of announcements. Save the date, Saturday, July 20th, and rain date, Saturday, July 27th, from 4 o'clock to sundown for the summer potluck picnic at Croton Landing Park. All members and friends of UUCHV, as well as our friends from the First Unitarian Society of Westchester, are invited to enjoy fun, food, games, and a drumming circle. Second announcement, UU The Vote at UUCHV will be kicking off their summer campaign by supporting the Vote Forward campaign. For details, please see Daria at the UU The Vote table in the Fellowship Hall during coffee hour. For most up-to-date information on these topics and others, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you're present in the sanctuary, please join us for coffee and conversation in the Fellowship Hall. If you're watching the live stream, the link for the Zoom coffee hour can be found in the Saturday reminder in your email. If you're just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us at uucroton@gmail.com with your name, and we will make sure that you are added to our e-news list. Also, please remember to silence your cell phones at this time. Once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Our guest speaker today is Lily Carayannis, who is a graduate of Union Theological Seminary. Her day job is investigating NYPD officers who are accused of misconduct. Lily focuses her ministry on ecology, animal liberation, trans rights, and police reform. Welcome, Lily.
Good morning, thank you. Our invocation today is from the Data Jing, which is a 2,500-year-old religious text. This particular version is translated by the great Ursula K. Le Guin, and she describes the Tao as the most lovable of all religious texts, funny, keen, modest, kind, indestructibly outrageous, and inexhaustibly refreshing. The Tao, or the Way, is fundamentally unknowable, definitionally undefinable, and yet nonetheless calls us to speak to it. This is the opening chapter of the Tao. The way you can go isn't the real way. The name you can say isn't the real name. Heaven and earth begin in the unnamed. Name's the mother of the 10,000 things. So the unwanting soul sees what's hidden, and the ever-wanting soul sees only what it wants. Two things, one origin, but different in name, whose identity is mystery. Mystery of all mysteries, the door to the hidden.
We now invite the children of the congregation to join our RE leader, who's Linda today, and ring the bell 8 times for our 8 ethical principles. Today's chalice lighting is from Maureen Killoran. As we weather the winds of change, may we have wisdom to cherish moments of stillness. As we recollect times of challenge and pain, may we remember also the graceful blessings of our lives. As we look to future unknowns, may we have the boldness to trust that there is unimaginable good yet to come. Now please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice.
Good morning again. So for our Time for All Ages, I have a number of small packets. And inside is a little red fish. And I will pass these out to anyone who wants to. It's not a real fish. Now, can you hear me just fine? I know Zoom can't hear me, but pass some of these here. Here we go. I think I have enough. We'll pass them around. These are divination tools. And the way that they're used is if you take them out and put them on your palm, flat like this. I pass them all out, so I don't have one. Flat on your palm like this. Inside is a little red fish. There you go. And they'll start curling up. And if you see, the way that they curl will tell you whatever it is. On the package, you'll see, like, maybe it means that your mood is jealous or indifferent. And as you see, many of you are seeing, I'm looking at here, they kind of flop around a little bit, they move, sometimes they just lay flat. That's also part of the divination. Sometimes they don't move at all. And so, And so the question I have is does anybody have a sense of how these work? Now, obviously, we are divining things and they're revealing something about ourselves, but they're also a physical object in the world that works somehow. What was that? It contracts when it heats up. That's one theory. Any other theories? Static electricity, I heard. Body temperature? The spirits. It jumps out of your hand. That says something about your future. So you can, whenever you're ready, you can put them back in your bag. You don't have to, though. You can keep playing with them all service. They're the congregations now. But you can reuse them. So you can put them back in the bag, and they can be reused as much as you want to divine your futures. Is that they are very attracted to water. And so on one side of your hand, when you lay them flat, it sucks in the water on your hand and pushes only one side of it. So one side of it gets a bunch of water, and it starts pushing the edges wherever the water happened to be drawn out of your hand. And that's how it kind of curls up and flops around, is that it soaks in all the water on one side, causing that side to get bigger and pushing the little fish around. And that is the secret to the divination of the miracle fish. I don't know if we are singing our children out. If we do.
We come together in community to share with one another, to support one another, and to celebrate one another. We bear sacred witness to each other in this honored ritual. As we begin, we know that there are both great sorrows and great joys in our world that must be acknowledged as well. We light our first candle to honor those in pain, victims of violence and war and oppression all around the world. We light a second candle because we understand that amidst all of that pain, there is also celebration and joy in our world. We honor it's been such a time for you. I invite you to come forward to light a candle and to briefly tell us your joy or sorrow. You may also raise your hand inside.
Hi, I'm Margie Kemper, and it was a joy last weekend to be with UUCHV at Peekskill Pride's Family Day in the Park, where we got to share the news about our upcoming program for LGBTQIA youth and their allies, and it was a lovely day for all.
Hi, I'm Christine, and just wanted to share, Matt and I celebrated 26 years this week, so it's a joy.
We also have a joy from home from Jim Russell, and it is that they spent a family week at the Russell Cottage in Maine with 14 members of their family. We light one final candle for all of the joys and sorrows that remain unexpressed, and for those outside of our walls who are searching for a place to bring the wholeness of their lives and to be received with love.
I invite you now to join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Please settle in comfortably, whatever that looks like for you. You can close your eyes if you wish. Allow your body just to relax into this sacred space. Breathe deeply. And breathe out slowly. Breathe in compassion and breathe out our peace. And while you breathe, please join in a minute of silence, which will be followed by a musical meditation.
Today's reading is Miracle Fish by Ada Limon. I used to pretend to believe in God. Mainly, I liked so much to talk to somebody in the dark. Think of how far a voice must have to travel to go beyond the universe. How powerful that voice must be to get there. Once in a small chapel in Chimayo, New Mexico, I knelt in the dirt because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. That was before I learned to harness that upward motion inside me. Before I nested my head in the blood of my body, there was a sign and it said, "The earth is blessed. Do not play in it, but I swear I will play on this blessed earth until I die." I relied on a miracle fish once in New York City to tell me my fortune. That was before I knew it was my body's water that moved it, that the massive ocean inside of me was what made the fish swim. Now please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 309, "Earth is Our Homeland," in your gray hymnal.
In the 1960s, a child in rural Michigan heard about the concept of extraterrestrials. He thought about the possibility of life forms which had not originated on Earth, but somewhere out there in the vast cosmos. And that idea grabbed a hold of his imagination. Now, we often think of extraterrestrials in the midst of an array of cultural forms that surround us, usually in popular fiction or in conspiracy theories. And so we think either of the terror of destruction and colonization from an external force with a far more advanced military than ourselves, or we think of Roswell and powerful government entities cribbing notes from these creatures and their technology in order to replicate it and dominate the world. So in the midst of this, it can be kind of hard to get ourselves back to a sense of childlike wonder when talking about the possibility of life that hadn't originated on this planet. But John Shepard, that child in rural Michigan who was captivated by the thought of aliens and the thought of contacting aliens, John was living at the beginning of this period of saturation, and perhaps because of that, he retained his awe of the thought of making contact with something out there. And so John began to build a radio station pointed towards space. It started out small, just some electronic tone pulses sent out into space. But slowly he began to construct something slightly bigger, slightly more powerful, slightly more complex. He lived with his grandparents, and in their living room, he built a broadcast station to the stars. In the front of his house, he constructed a 2-story radio tower, which he constructed out of a dismantled ski lift. And the picture of this is phenomenal. It is his living room filled with scientific displays all throughout the background, and in the foreground, his grandmother knits. By the mid-70s, John was spending 4 hours a day broadcasting millions of miles into space and monitoring the stars for any return call. He would add to his equipment array and monitor the skies for the next 30 years. I think of that, 4 hours a day of broadcast for 30 years. He called it terrestrial radio, and he would play what he called non-commercial music, including stuff like Afrobeat, gamelan, jazz, and that sort of stuff. Now, John never claimed to have a returned message from the aliens during all that time. And finally, in the 90s, he stopped broadcasting because it was just no longer financially feasible. John said of his experience, quote, "My interest is in finding out the unknown. And the unknown is just that, unknown. And you search and you continue searching because of your desire, because you know there's something there." Now, I don't know about you, but when I heard that, I said, yes, exactly. Not about the aliens per se, but about our collective relationship with the unknown. And the more I sat with the story, the more I have asked myself if John was simply a monk of the space age, and if his broadcasts were just prayers to the unknown mystery of the universe. And when I say prayer, I don't mean it in the sense of beseeching a higher power to intervene in the world's affairs. To me, prayer is talking to the unknown. We may talk to it with words or music, with actions or dance, or in whatever way we imagine, or our imagination tells us the unknown may understand or may reveal itself. I think prayer doesn't need to ask for anything at all. It's just an attempted contact with something that is beyond our ability to communicate. So meditation is one form of prayer insofar as it communicates with that unknown within us or connects us to the unknown around us. Divination, too, is a form of prayer, in that we ask questions of the unknown and attempt to discern the unknown in what is revealed. However, these traditional forms of religious observation need not confine prayer, just as science cannot contain the unknown. It always slips a little further beyond us. Now, in the poem today, Ada Limon says, "Think of how far a voice must go to travel beyond the universe." John tried to amplify his voice beyond the universe. And if John's project seems like a silly idea, like the delusions of a lonely man in rural Michigan, then I ask you to think about the Voyager program. The United States sent 2 interstellar probes into space, the furthest we have ever sent any object. And on board those probes is a golden record. It's like a vinyl record, but it's made out of a more durable material. And on the record itself, there are musical tracks from all over the world, and images and greetings. So a physical record is traveling into space to make contact with the unknown. And what is more interesting to me is not the contents of the record per se, but the cover of the record. Now, on your order of service, you may have noticed that there is a photo on there, and that photo is the record's cover. And then on the side, you'll see some images, those same images, but on a white background to make them easier to discern. Now, those are supposed to be instructions as to how to play the record that do not require language to understand. It's an attempt to communicate with an unlanguageable unknown. I know if you look at it, I would have no idea how to play that record. But embedded on the surface of the record is a little packet of uranium that decays at a very stable rate, such that if an intelligent life form finds this golden record, they can measure how much time has elapsed since the record was produced to the time of its interception. It's essentially a radioactive timer. So in 10,000 years, this record could be discovered somewhere in interstellar space, and the hope is that the creatures with no idea of human language, well beyond the time that humans have departed this universe, and that these creatures would be able to play it, and they would find photographs of people licking ice cream, that's a picture on there, or diagrams of human pregnancy. So our lonely little planet sent a probe into space with a few precious memories and some thoughts and prayers that an alien civilization would find it, understand the complex non-linguistic instructions, and discover the beauty that was Earth's civilization. One lonely man in the woods of Michigan playing music into the vastness of space, and one lonely planet blasting a time capsule into that same vast mystery. Ada Limon in our poem today says that she used to pretend to believe in God, mainly because she liked to talk so much to someone in the dark. So too does the most powerful aerospace organization in history, it seems. So if talking to the unknown is not simply the purview of lonely people with an obsession with telemetry like John, it is also not simply a poetic or hopeful expression sent to space. Living in the nuclear age, we have accumulated a large amount of radioactive material that will be extraordinarily dangerous for thousands of years to come. Radioactive waste from nuclear weapons production and nuclear energy is a huge problem, not just for us today, but in planning for the known future of human history, for the unknown future of human history. There are many people who are attempting to solve this problem of how we are to label dangerous nuclear waste such that an explorer 10,000 years from now will be able to recognize it as dangerous. 10,000 years from now. Just a huge part of the problem is semantic shifts. Think, for instance, of the Jolly Roger flag. We associate that with Halloween, pirates, maybe some buried treasure. But just 300 years ago, that symbol was well known and feared. Its meaning was unambiguous. A very dangerous ship was coming to pillage your ship. A mere 300 years later, it's on children's toys, and it gives us thoughts of buried treasure. And that's just 300 years of meaning shift. Imagine what can change in a symbol in 1,000 years, or 10,000 years. So a lot of people are trying to think about how to appropriately label nuclear waste. Some are talking about maybe a comic book style set of frames that show a person touching the nuclear waste symbol on them, and then dying. Now, that assumes that people can read left to right in 10,000 years, that they can understand the causality between the frames in 100 years. Some have thought about altering the landscape itself to make large spikes and imposing figures like big sculptures that are meant to prey on humans' natural aversions to scary places. Now, when I hear this, I can't help but think of some Aztec ruins or even the Great Pyramids. Would such architecture really warn people away, or would it call us forward with a desire to uncover the unknown? And I imagine the plagues and curses that our modern world could release on the far future. This process of effectively labeling nuclear hazards for an unknown future is ongoing. But I think that the process itself is a prayer to the unknown, a care for someone or something who is so far removed from us that we cannot trust on shared language or shared symbols to communicate danger. The person we are warning likely has the same basic bodies that we do, but culture is so fluid with time that these future people are effectively extraterrestrials insofar as we are concerned. Now, all three of these examples are rather large scale, and that's intentional. The clearest examples are also often the most extreme. But they all share something in common. I think they are non-theistic attempts to communicate meaningfully with beings that we do not currently know, and which we do not know if will ever exist or ever receive our broadcast. Each of them have a bit of whimsy and a practical purpose. And I think most importantly, each recognize the constitutive mystery of our world, and each tries to meet that mystery as mystery itself. These are not missions of conquest. These are not attempts to resolve the unknown by turning it into the known. In short, each uses science, but is not itself a scientific endeavor. And that, to me, is the heart of spiritual life. We are surrounded with the unknown, be it the spatial unknown as what lurks in the depths of the ocean, or out there in the beyond, the temporal unknowns, in the beyond, also the temporal unknowns, as in what is going to happen tomorrow, and existential unknowns, such as death and dying. These mysteries do not require faith to uphold them, or science to confirm them. These mysteries are the very nature of our experience in the universe at all. Indeed, sometimes it can feel like what we know is simply swaddling clothes to protect us from the unknown. One of the acknowledged sources of the EU faith is, and I'll quote it, is direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. And I think this is what draws me closest to UUism, more than the principles or even the other sources, more than the hymnal or even the justice work. Too often we can feel like spiritual and religious experience was something from the far past, something pre-scientific, and thus not entirely relevant to our experience now. Or it's entirely relevant, but its relevancy comes because it continues to capture our soul thousands of years later. But I would argue that so long as the unknown surrounds us and mystery persists as part of our collective experience, then so too does new forms of spiritual life and religious experience. A probe sent to space with an album of Javanese music with the song Johnny Be Good and Beethoven is right now traveling through interstellar space. In 300 years, it will be past the Oort belt outside of our solar system, and it will continue to travel into the future so far away that it may be the only remnant of this big blue planet years into the future. That, to me, is every bit a religious experience as are the many pages of humanity's ancient scriptures. Our spiritual life is generative, it is alive, it keeps a connection with the unknown, and because of that, it is forever renewed. All of us have a connection with the mystery that surrounds us. It is vital to our spiritual lives that we cultivate that relationship. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture. I am not saying that you need to go home and build a space tower to communicate with aliens. But I do ask us all to think about those moments when we talk to the unknown. When we talk to it, not expecting a response, but being transformed by the very act of talking to it. I think that keeping a diary is a form of talking to the unknown. I think that pulling tarot cards is. I think that standing in a lawn surrounded by lightning bugs just to feel what they must feel as they pulse, calling out for connection in a large world whose darkness threatens to consume them. Find mystery, find the unknown, and talk to it. Broadcast your heart to space without expecting an answer. Ada Limon tells us that she relied on a miracle fish to tell her her fortune. But that was before she knew that it was her body's water which moved it, what she calls that massive ocean inside of us, which makes the fish swim. Well, may our internal oceans make the fish swim. May we be one light of many lights pulsing in the darkness, and may we lean over the edge of the earth in wonder and cast our questions into the deep. And I invite you now to rise in body or spirit for our final hymn, many a favorite, Blue Boat Home.
make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in the spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those that in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work and love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the UUA Annual Program Fund to help meet our fair share contribution. For more information, please visit the website uua.org. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or check in the offering plate as it comes by. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter, or by visiting our website, uuchudsonvalley.org. Or if you prefer, you may always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Of the offering, the words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Be ours a religion which centers play, which talks to mystery, and which never loses its awe.
staff